name is Ernest Miller. I'm a chef, a historian, and educator. I specialize in California food history. I love California food history because California is the greatest food region in the world. Now, of course, when you think about the first major export crop of California, what are you going to think about? You're going to think about the orange. But you'd be wrong, because the first major export crop from Southern California was actually the walnut. Now, of course, this is not an actual walnut, but it's a little bit easier to see. And the reason it's the first major export crop from Southern California is for several reasons. Number one, California becomes a state in 1850, but there's no intercontinental railroad. So even if we were growing oranges in Southern California, which we were, we couldn't ship them anywhere because they'd go bad. There was also no refrigerated boxcars at the time. On the other hand, walnuts can take literally the slow boat to China, and they'll still be good. They don't have to have a transcontinental railroad. Also, walnuts are a native California crop. Not the walnut we normally eat, which is the English walnut, but the California native black walnut. So those were growing down here long before man even came to North America. The California black walnut, by the way, is absolutely delicious. Very high in oil content, very flavorful. As a matter of fact, if you ever want to get some California black walnuts, which are available from distributors and certain stores, you want to make sure you have a best buy date on them, because the oil content is so high, they have a tendency to go rancid if you don't pay attention to proper storage and longevity. The other problem with the California native black walnut is that the shell is so hard that it would actually crack your standard nutcracker. You need special nutcrackers in order to break them open. Now, of course, the Native Americans ate them. They would just bash them with stones. But that's why when you get California black walnuts, they always come in pieces. You're never going to get nice whole or half native California black walnuts. But the walnut we grow is the English walnut. Now, it's so called because it was brought here by the Spanish. Actually, the name has nothing to do with, just that the English tend to like walnuts, and it's just a varietal name. But the missionaries, the Spanish missionaries, introduced walnut crops to California, it became a really big export crop. As a matter of fact, at the World's Fair at the end of the 19th century, when we were promoting Los Angeles agriculture, we were promoting a couple of crops, but the primary crop we were promoting was the walnut. And we grew tons of walnuts. We have a historic landmark in the city of Whittier called the Paradox Hybrid Walnut Tree, which was part of a University of California experimental walnut station trying to find better walnut trees to plant. This particular walnut tree was actually developed by somebody you may have heard of, the great biologist Luther Burbank. So again, another tie to California history there. We have the city of Walnut. Some of the cities in Southern California, such as the city of Pico Rivera, have a walnut on the city seal because they exported so many darn walnuts. We have a lot of streets named Walnut or Nogales, which is Spanish for walnut. So walnuts were a huge crop in Southern California in the late 1800s and early 20th century. But the problem was there was a walnut blight, a disease that started killing all the walnut trees. Now, they fought it for a little bit, but there were other crops to grow, so they switched to these other crops. What happened was, in one of the greatest agricultural moves in all of history, the entire walnut industry in Southern California moved up north to near Fresno, where we continue to grow an awful lot of walnuts. As a matter of fact, California grows 80% of the world's walnuts. It's often considered a superfood full of fats and fibers. It's good for the heart. And darn it just tastes good. As a matter of fact, I try to put, whenever I can put nuts in a recipe, I try to use California walnuts. For example, pesto, normally made with, basil, olive oil, garlic, lemon, and pine nuts. Well, we don't grow a lot of pine nuts here in California, but what we do grow is the walnut. And I believe that if the Italians had been growing more walnuts than pine nuts, pesto would be made walnut because it tastes better. So the walnut, fantastic, and California is the world's source for walnuts. And oh, by the way, the English walnut crop that we grow, primarily grown on native California black walnut rootstock, the walnut.